Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the RNA Innovation Institute, led by Dr. Drew Weissman. We have a special star with us today, Jax Barry, who we're going to talk about a little bit. I hope you're not embarrassed by us doing that. We welcome the Barry family, but also State Senator Cappelletti, who brought something really important with us. Dr. Epstein and I have been working at Penn Medicine for 30 years. I'm going to leave the science to him. I'm going to touch on three important things. Dr. Epstein, Dr. Jamieson, Dr. Rubenstein have been the leaders at Penn Medicine for the last several decades, and they recruit extreme talent to Penn Medicine. And then we give them some money, and miracles happen. And Dr. Weissman is an example of that. So, Senator, we so much appreciate your work getting $375,000 out of Harrisburg and a Nobel Prize. They take about the same amount of effort, and we really appreciate you navigating through. But I wanted to, most importantly, mention something that's really important to me personally. I was out in Chicago last week, and a gentleman comes running up to me, and he says, "You're from Penn." "Yeah." "Do you know Dr. Weissman?" I said, "Of course I know Dr. Weissman. He won the Nobel Prize." He said, "No, he was my mom's friend for, I think, 20 years. And I said, "Who was she?" "Judy Lotus, who was the secretary in the infectious disease department." All her son Kevin wanted to talk about was how great Dr. Weissman was, not as a scientist, not as a physician, but as a person. And Drew, we have our strategic plan that includes do everything with humanity, and you're certainly an example of that. So we salute you, and with that, I'll turn it over to State Senator Cappelletti.
Well, thank you so much. I'm State Senator Amanda Cappelletti, and I don't actually represent this part of the district. I represent parts of Montgomery and Delaware counties. We border Philadelphia. But we're here today because the money that we got is really to help drive innovation and to see where the mRNA research can get us to go when it comes to so many different issues. My best friend in the whole world, she lives in Oregon, and I deeply cherish the time that I get to spend with her in person. And over the years that we have been visiting each other across the country, I see firsthand what a celiac diagnosis does to her. Her dad was diagnosed many years ago when we're fairly early on in our friendship, and we talk about what that meant. And as she got older and she was having some difficulties, she found out that she had celiac disease. Last December, we went out to visit her in Oregon, and we had to make sure that this was her butter and this was our butter. This was our toaster, this was her toaster. We have to make sure that there's absolutely no cross-contamination, as simple as using the same knife, as not washing my hands from touching a gluten product to touching her food or something she might put in her mouth can cause a reaction. I see how difficult every time I'm with her, how difficult it is to make sure that we're finding a restaurant that can accommodate her, to make sure that we are cleaning out and cleaning off all of our desktops or our kitchen tops, and whatever it is that we might be doing if we're going to be sharing any kind of a meal together. And I know that her experience is what so many other Americans who live with celiac or other gluten intolerances experience. And it shows me just how vital it is that we find solutions to ease these burdens when individuals get these diagnoses, especially with celiac disease, where the only treatment that we have right now in this moment is to simply not eat gluten. So today, I'm really excited that we were able to present a state grant to support research, as I've mentioned, into RNA therapeutics and how it could be used to prevent or treat celiac disease, and hoping that we can really get to a point where we stop it before it even starts. The grant, which was awarded for, as you've heard, $375,000, will fund research led by Dr. Drew Weissman, as you've heard, our Nobel Prize winning physician here at UPenn and in the southeast of Pennsylvania at the Perelman School of Medicine. He's best known for his contributions for RNA biology and the COVID-19 mRNA vaccines. Instrumental to securing this grant was the advocacy of a constituent of mine and his family. They're people that I have been working with for a long time and will continue to work with each and every year to find funding and help support this cause. It's not as I've mentioned, it's not the first time that I've worked with them, with Jax, as you heard from Mr. Epstein, and the Berry family, because in May of 2023, we worked together to secure and present a grant to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia for celiac-related research. And in May of this year, I introduced legislation supported by them to require the clear labeling of gluten on our food and medicine packaging and other food allergies. It's something that I know would make a huge difference for families like the Berries who live with a celiac diagnosis. I've spoken with other individuals who are starting to come forward and participate in this advocacy project. As simple as buying ibuprofen can be a problem. Not every facility is clear about whether or not there's any hint of gluten, because gluten doesn't just come from wheat. There are a variety of sources gluten comes from, and if it's in that facility, it can easily cause cross-contamination and cause digestive problems and other problems for an individual with celiac or gluten intolerance. So it's inspiring to work with young people like Jax who are passionate about using their life experiences to make the world a better place. And as we celebrate today's funding, I think we should also take a moment to appreciate the science and discoveries that happen right here. In a world with so much uncertainty, it's amazing to marvel at the scientific discoveries that have gotten us to where we are today. As a public health professional who now works in the legislature, I could not be more grateful for the world-renowned thinkers and innovators working on public health issues in our Commonwealth. I'm incredibly proud that Penn is home to more than one of those who will be tackling celiac disease. So thank you to Penn for hosting us today and for prioritizing research that helps make our life a better place for people who live in our communities. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to the man of the hour and the reason that we've all come here and helped to make all of this happen, Jax Berry.
Thank you, Senator Cappelletti. Hi, I'm Jax Berry. I'm 11 years old, and I'm in 6th grade. Thank you, Dr. Weissman, Dr. Epstein, Dr. Mahoney, Senator Cappelletti, and the Weissman Lab team. I'm grateful for this opportunity to share my lived experience and my goal, eating without fear. I have celiac disease, which is a potentially life-threatening food allergy, autoimmune disease, and digestive disease. Just before I started kindergarten, I was diagnosed with celiac when I was not growing. As I learned to read, I started with fairy tales and food labels. Celiac impacts more than 3.3 million Americans, greater than 1% of the general population. Celiac is triggered by eating gluten, a protein found in wheat, barley, rye, and most oats. The only treatment for celiac is a strict gluten-free diet for life, so far. Gluten ingestion for celiacs can cause more than 200 debilitating symptoms, including anemia, cancer, diarrhea, vomiting, intestinal damage, heart disease, immunological scarring, and malnutrition. 44% of those who follow a strict gluten-free diet still get gluten once a month. Unlike traditional IgE-mediated food allergies, there is no rescue medication for celiacs in the event of accidental ingestion of gluten, and one cannot outgrow celiac. If I eat just a crumb of gluten, just a crumb, I can get very sick, living on the bathroom floor with vomiting and diarrhea for days. It's awful. Gluten also damages my small intestine. When I was 5 years old, I had Marsh 3 level damage, which is the second worst type there is. And I was told that the doctors only see Marsh 4 level damage when they do an autopsy. It was really bad. I was also anemic. Food insecurity for celiacs happens every day, regardless of a person's age or social status, because of various reasons. 1. There's a constant threat of cross-contact with gluten. 2. 80% of foods have gluten in them. 3. The limited availability of gluten-free food, especially when eating out of home. 4. The high price of gluten-free food. And 5. Gluten is not required to be labeled on packaged foods in the U.S. yet. There is no break from celiac ever. Celiac is every bite, every day, constant worrying, constant questioning, constant uncertainty, constant high cost. Celiac is a disease, not a diet. Since 2006, wheat has been required to be labeled in the U.S., but barley, rye, and oats have not. Imagine if you had a tree nut allergy and only almonds and pistachios were required to be labeled, but not other tree nuts such as almonds and pecans. That would create a massive food safety gap that needed to be closed. Fortunately, for those with a tree nut allergy, that scenario is not the case, but that similar safety gap does exist with the voluntary labeling of barley, rye, and oats. That's why I filed a citizen petition with the FDA to require the labeling of gluten on all packaged foods in the U.S. This past summer, I was lucky to go to London and Paris. It was so much easier reading food labels in Europe than it is in the U.S. Even though I don't speak French, I knew it was safe to eat in France because gluten is required to be labeled, and Europe takes celiac disease and gluten accommodations so much more seriously on packaged foods and prepared meals. Each day that passes causes celiacs great risk of ingesting gluten and getting very sick. This can stop celiacs from living their best lives possible. This is a matter of health equity. So how did we get here? Let's take a moment to step back in time. The year was 1887. Grover Cleveland was president. Americans celebrated the 100th anniversary of the Constitution. The NIH was established, and Dr. Samuel G. theorized about celiac. If the patient can be cured at all, it must be by the means of diet. That was 137 years ago. Fast forward to 1952. Harry Truman was president. Dr. Jonas Salk was poised to develop the polio vaccine, and it was first discovered that gluten is the trigger of celiac disease. That was 72 years ago. Fast forward to 2024, and the only known treatment option for celiac disease is a medically required, strict gluten-free diet with no exceptions. That's simply not enough. For far too long, celiac has not received its fair share of funding, since many believe that gluten-free is a diet and it's all that's ever been needed to treat celiac. I'm here to tell you that's a myth. Biomedical breakthroughs are only enabled through research, and this requires a transformative commitment with curiosity and adequate funding. I'm so excited that we raised $375,000 from Pennsylvania to start working with Nobel laureate Dr. Weissman. This is Penn medicine. There is nothing beyond your capacity. If COVID has taught us anything, it's that we can solve large problems if we work together. Thank you for joining me on my celiac journey. It's my honor to introduce Dr. Drew Weissman, a world-renowned physician and researcher at Penn Medicine, best known for his contributions to RNA biology and the COVID vaccine. As the Washington Post reported, Dr. Weissman helped make hugs possible again. With your help, let's make eating without fear possible again. Let's do this.
Thank you. That was really a wonderful, heartfelt speech. Let me first welcome you all to the RNA Institute. The next thing, and people in my lab will understand this, the person you're funding through this is Jillian Melamed, who's back in this corner, she'll be doing the actual work and working with me to develop the ideas to make this possible. So the RNA Institute came out of the COVID-19 pandemic, but we've been studying RNA for decades, many decades. And what excites us the most about it is all of the potential things that it can be used for. Autoimmunity is one big element that celiac disease is a major part of. But there's many other diseases that RNA research will hopefully someday help. And we're looking forward to those days when we can do an off-the-shelf RNA treatment for peanut allergies or for rheumatoid arthritis or systemic lupus erythematosus and celiac disease. So we're very excited about the potential, about the future directions that RNA has, and we're so excited that it has an enormous potential to help treat celiac, which would be the first time ever for a treatment that will prevent the disease and maybe, and this is just a maybe, someday allow you to eat bread with flour and other grains in it with your family. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Weissman. I'm Leslie Barry, Jax's mom. With Thanksgiving almost upon us, I want to say how grateful we are today. When Jax was diagnosed with celiac disease more than 6 years ago, we were told there would be a cure in 5 to 10 years. But here we are today, still with the gluten-free diet as the only treatment option. That is why today is so exciting. This opportunity to work with Penn Medicine and the Weissman Lab brings new hope today and new therapies, hopefully, for tomorrow. Living with celiac on a daily basis is really hard. As Jack said, it's every bite, every day. There's never a break, it's stressful, and it can be exhausting. We know this from our family's lived experience. When Jax received his life-changing diagnosis, we decided we had to act. Jax and I started a blog called Gluten-Free Finds, where we share Jax's favorite gluten-free products and how to navigate daily life with celiac disease, given life's daily events with food at school, sports, birthday parties, and more. Our blog has been a great way to connect with other families, to build community, to connect with other kids, with gluten-free kids and families that have celiac disease. Along our journey, we've met some amazing people, including Senator Cappelletti and Jax's doctor, Dr. Singh, who's here today. His treating physician, who's the co-director of CHOP Celiac Center. So thank you both for being here today as Jax's biggest supporters. This past summer, Jax was invited to speak at the NIH and share his lived experience at the NIH's workshop on immune-mediated digestive diseases. At the workshop, Dr. Drew Bremer, the director of the NIH Office of Nutrition Research, said, "Jax reminds us why we come to work each day." We're so proud of Jax for everything he has accomplished so far. But this young advocate is also a kid. He still makes time to be a kid. He loves eating pizza, gluten-free pizza, of course, playing soccer and tennis, going skiing, collecting baseball cards, and even listening to Taylor Swift. And now I'd like to introduce you to my husband, John.
Thanks everyone for joining us today. When we heard back in 2018 that there were no medical treatments for celiac other than a gluten-free diet, even in the event of accidental ingestion, we asked, how can we solve this? Dr. Singh knows that because he was the first recipient of that question over at CHOP. I first met Dr. Weissman when I heard him speak about his work and the potential of the RNA platform to treat peanut allergies and autoimmune diseases. So all of a sudden that Venn diagram went off in my head and said, wow, we have the intersection of autoimmune diseases, food allergies, and digestive diseases. And that's really where celiac sits. Dr. Weissman's concept of turning one mRNA discovery into a cure for many diseases really intrigued me. I wondered, could this really be the breakthrough that's been needed for celiac disease? Drew was kind enough to speak with me and learn about Jax, our why. And I shared that 1 crumb of gluten is like kryptonite to our Superman and can make him violently ill and that long-term adverse effects, even when the stomach ailments have subsided, can include anemia and cancer and heart disease, intestinal damage, and malnutrition. Drew understood how hard it is to manage celiac, especially for a child. And Drew shared his thoughts on the potential for mRNA, celiac research, and a proposal to get started. And that's where Jillian came in and said, how do we do this? And we got that proposal, and I remember bringing it home to Jax and said, take a look at this. And even though he didn't understand all the scientific jargon, if you will, or language in the proposal, and truth be told, I didn't either, he thought maybe this research could bring back food freedom and the concept of eating without fear. And that's when we said, well, who should we go to speak to about this? And Senator Cappelletti came to mind, first and foremost. And we're so grateful for the bipartisan and bicameral support that celiac research funding has received from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That's not an easy feat to do, Amanda, and we thank you and your colleagues for getting that done. I'm here today because of a biomedical breakthrough back in the 1940s when my dad became one of the first recipients of open heart surgery ever in the United States, and that was at Boston Children's. You see, he was born with a coarctation of the aorta, and he found his way to Dr. Robert Gross, a cardiologist who was a pioneer of open heart surgery at Boston Children's. And through calculated risk-taking and the like, the surgery in the early 1940s was a success, and my dad lived till right before he turned 99 with no other cardiac interventions necessary. We're so excited today about the breakthrough possibilities of a better and healthier tomorrow. Our vision is that Jax is part of the first generation of celiacs to receive a treatment other than a gluten-free diet, and ideally, one day a cure. We are grateful that the Weissman Lab has also received an additional $1 million grant commitment from the Department of Defense's congressionally directed medical research program. We are hopeful that RNA innovation can help change the trajectory of the lives of 3.3 million American celiacs and their loved ones. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Jonathan Epstein, Interim Executive Vice President of the University of Pennsylvania for the Health System and Dean of the Perelman School of Medicine.
So thank you so much, John and Leslie and Jax. We're just delighted to have you all here with us today. Drew Weissman is a pretty famous scientist. I think he has one more Nobel Prize than you do, Jax, but per year of life, you might have him on television interviews. I think you've really been a remarkable advocate in a very important way. And congratulations on all you've accomplished already. Almost a year ago, we were here in this building when Governor Shapiro joined us to celebrate the opening of this Institute for RNA Innovation, underscoring his support and stating his hope that, and I'll quote him, the research that is done here will lead to even more groundbreaking discoveries, more treatments, more cures, more opportunity for happiness and good health, not just here in the great city of Philadelphia or in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but across the globe, unquote. With thanks to Senator Cappelletti and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania by allocating these critical state funds to such an important medical problem, we're indeed advancing our efforts for more treatments and more cures. State research dollars, like those that we're describing today, are really essential for making advances. And investing in the best and the brightest, as you say at Penn Medicine, there's nothing we can't accomplish if we put our minds to it. But with a little fuel behind it, it makes it a lot easier. So Senator Cappelletti, I want to add my thanks for your efforts as well. And I'll add that while you're not the senator for this district, you are my senator since I live in Delaware County. My esteemed colleague, Dr. Weissman, really has brought us to the launch of a new era for RNA biology and RNA therapeutics, and it's the dawn of a very exciting era for autoimmune diseases broadly. None of us can predict the pace of advance. Things happen in quantum leaps, somewhat unexpectedly over time, but those quantum leaps are brought on by hard work and dedication of people like those who are here in front of us today. And we're seeing a much more rapid advance and a compression of the timeline from an initial discovery in one of these laboratories to an FDA-approved therapy. And that's something we're very proud of at Penn Medicine for helping to advance. So to the Berry family, thank you for your dedication. Jax, may you continue to inspire all of us. And may we work hard to try to make your day-to-day living a lot easier over time. Thanks, everybody, for being here today.
Thank you all so much, Dr. Epstein, Dr. Weissman, the Berry family. It's overwhelming. Before I close this out for questions, I just want to note that at 11 years old, Jax is really not just working because it affects him. You heard in his own words that he's working with the thought of others and people who maybe can't, can't afford the gluten-free foods that he knows he and his family can. So I just thank you guys for working towards a better world and the way that you're bringing it together and for giving us this treasure in Jax. Thank you guys so much. And it feels like a drop in the bucket for what I know goes into medical research, but I am incredibly proud of helping to bring home that work here and being a small part of helping to make these advances. And with that, does anybody have any questions? Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for being here. We appreciate it.